Hello, this is Goddess Raven Botanica. I am Goddess Raven, and this is Lake Lanier Ancestors Speak Psychic Reading. The tragedy of Lake Lanier, what has transpired near Lake Lanier, everything is an absolute, it's just so overwhelming, sad, so much anger, rage, sadness, genocide, destruction, everything. How this lake was formed, nothing good, nothing good. So there's no surprise that these incidents keep happening there. It shouldn't be a surprise at all. So let's get into this. Oh my gosh. Oh man, so much. But I'm going to get through this. Lake Lanier is a massive 57.92 square miles reservoir that was established in 1956 with the completion of the Buford Dam. To this day, it helps control flooding along the Chattahoochee River, as well as provide water and power to residents near Atlanta. But let's go back to 1912. In the small African American town of Oscarville, settled along the Chattahoochee waters, Oscarville was home to roughly 1,100 Black people, most of whom were freed after fighting in the American Civil War. Many worked as hands in the cotton field. Many worked as hands in the cotton fields or performed odd jobs for white residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. They managed to make a decent living for themselves, creating a healthy community with churches, schools, and small businesses. Still on the edge from the Atlanta race riots of 1906, many locals feared more violence could erupt at any time. A local newspapers and captured and shared the pain, fear, and terror Black people felt in the South during that time. It was clear that in the early 1900s, Blacks in Atlanta lived in constant fear of violence. For the small towns of Oscarville, the fear would turn into a brutal reality. On September 5th, 1912, a 22-year-old white woman named Ellen Grace claimed that two men tried to assault her, but were unsuccessful because they were scared away by her mother. Now, the Forsyth County Sheriff arrested not one, not two, but five Black men for the alleged assault. News of the attack and the arrest caused quite a stir in the surrounding Black communities. A vocal Black preacher named Grant Smith appealed to the sheriff to release the men. He claimed there wasn't much evidence to hold all five men accountable for the assault, and also suggested that one of the men could have already been in a consensual relationship with Ellen. Many whites were outraged by Smith's allegations, and an angry mob beat and horsewhipped the pastor on the steps of the church house, on the courthouse, almost taking his life. So this man's blood is on that courthouse. A week later, on September 12th, 1912, an 18-year-old white woman named May Crow was raped and beaten in the Big Creek community of Forsyth County, Georgia. The next morning, Crow's body was found half naked, bloody, and hidden under a pile of leaves. Her skull had been bludgeoned with a stone, but she was alive and barely breathing. Searchers would allegedly find a small pocket mirror at the scene of the crime that was said to belong to Ernest Knox, a 16-year-old black boy from Cumming, Georgia. Knox was arrested at his home, then subject to a mock lynching, which led to his corrosion, basically saying and confessing for the attack on Crow. As word spread of the attack on Crow and the confession by Knox, whites became increasingly angry. It wasn't long before a lynch mob formed, of course, in front of the jailhouse where the little 16-year-old boy Knox was being detained. Officers had to sneak Knox out the back door late that evening just to keep him from being hanged. He was taken to a jail in Atlanta for his protection, but would soon stand trial for the attack. The next day, 4 additional men, Oscar Daniel, Robert Edwards, Jane Daniel, and Ed Collin, were arrested and taken into custody as well, suspected to be accomplice to the 16-year-old boy. All of them black. Not only another angry mob of more than 2,000 whites had stormed the county jail, gaining access to the cells. They shot and killed Robert Edwards, dragged his body from the jailhouse, and hung him from a telephone pole in the town square. Ernest Knox and Ernest Daniel were both found guilty of the rape of May Crow. They were sentenced to death by hanging, even though it was illegal by the state law at the time. 8,000 whites congregated in town square of Cumming to watch the 2 teen boys publicly hang for a alleged crime they never truly had the opportunity to fight. Does this not seem like what happens today? The 1900s, 1912. We are in 2023, and we still have black men coming out of jail, Spanish men coming out of jail, black and Spanish men coming out of jail today that have served 16 to 20 years and all these years and long sentences for things that they have not done. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. It was after this hanging that the terror would truly begin to spread, as a white group of terrorists known as the Night Riders would make it their mission to run every black person they came across out of town. Because these incidents of a person has been murdered or raped, or this incident has happened, or somebody whistled at this woman, or this, that, and the other, these are just means to use to get people to leave off their land. This is called jealousy at its highest peak. These people were angry that this black town and these black towns were able to flourish, grow, and be prosperous. And so they wanted it. They didn't want to work for it themselves. They wanted what we had. And they took it by any means necessary. Oscarville will end up being one of their main targets because this was a flourishing town. And over the short period of just a few years, 98% of its Black residents would end up either leaving their home or being murdered for refusing to leave. Black property deeds found their way into hands of white neighbors without any bill of sales or transfer. They just commandeered our ancestors' land. This effectively allowed many whites to steal the land once owned by their Black counterparts when they were driven out by the night riders. More than 1,100 Blacks would lose their livelihood, and in little time, the once functioning, prosperous, healthy African American town of Oscarville would be a ghost town. Over time, pieces of the land would be sold to the government. See, the government had a hand, and they still have a hand in our demise. It is not owning land, being redlined. They still have their hands. Although you may not be able to see the strings as clearly, but the strings are there. Nevertheless, as the puppet master pulls at the moving parts. And by 1950, a plan to build Lake Lanier was in full swing. So not only they took the land, made use of it, profited off of it by selling it to the government. The genocide, the injustice to these 1,100 Black people, ancestors, have never been forgiven, have never been made right. To this day, the county of Forsyth is majority white. All you got is these tombstone heads of 1912, the ancestors that they allowed to stay there on this little bit of land. Meanwhile, the land is worth millions. Stolen land. Let me keep going. Soon the entire town of Oscarville would be underwater, initially and intentionally flooded in conjunction with the Buford Dam to support the growing demand for water, the need for a water supply to nearby cities. The resulting reservoir was named after Sidney Lanier, a poet and musician who was also a Confederate private. So they didn't dedicate it to Oscarville, the people that were murdered and the land was stolen from. In the end, construction would destroy more than 50,000 acres of farmland and displace more than 250 families. It would also relocate 20 cemeteries and their corpses in what some may see as an attempt to erase the sin of the past. So, was this the biggest way to erase the past? Bury it? Because so many believe that there is a Native American burial there. mm, mm, mm. Now, this Buford Dam was built and Lake Lanier was formed and covering up Oscarville and swallowing most of the history up. Many people died during the attack trying to get to Gainesville. George Rucker, a direct descendant who has traced his lineage 4 generations back to Oscarville, told the story of his great grandfather, Oliver Bear, Bear Oliver, Bird Oliver. I'm just because the pronunciation, and how their entire family was forced off their land. When the night riders came through, they had to leave everything. The main thing they left was the property, and my grandfather had 100 acres of land. Rucker said his family headed for the Chattahoochee River with an angry mob behind them. He said when the mob got to the bridge where they were, they had 2 options. They either had to swim or drown. Most of them didn't make it, he said. My grandfather is one of them that did make it. He lost some brothers and he lost some sisters. He said his mother would tell him whenever Oliver recalled the nights, he just sat and cried. His relatives who survived settled in Gainesville. Bucker said his great grandfather married his second wife and they built a house, a school there, which still stands in Gainesville. Now, the land, they said that the land that was remained that was still there, whites in the area took over the remaining properties in Oscarville. Oscarville farmers were specially skilled in raising poultry. And this ended up setting up something like which set the pace for Gainesville eventually becoming the poultry capital of the world. So now that that is done, as for Lake Lanier, now many people believe it is haunted because of the high number of drownings that occurred there. Officials say that there is an entire town that includes structures and even forest areas with trees that are 60 feet tall. It makes it more challenging to navigate through the lake. They said someone can quickly become trapped in debris, causing them to drown. Whew. Child. Now I know even to me, Usher's ex-wife Tamika, her son, KG, Kyle Glover, you know, he was basically accident happened where a motorboat, I think, while he was the child was on the on in the lake, on an inner tube. Somehow the motorboat ended up running over the top of the child and killing the child. So honestly, me personally, I don't think anybody should be up in that water. That's just personally my opinion. But let's get into the other portion of this recording, and that is, of course, asking questions of the ancestors that are there, ancestors of Oscarville, and the ancestors of Oscarville, the ancestors of Oscarville, and anyone else that is present there, the ancestors of Oscarville and others that have drowned or lost their life there. I ask that y'all come forward. Are you with us? Are you with me right now? Okay, so they are with me right now. Okay, so I'm going to ask the first question is, should the lake be drained? Should the lake be drained? Yes or no? Ancestors, do you want the lake drained? And that is no. They are now trying to put a bill in to rename the lake. Do y'all feel like y'all want the lake to be renamed? And that is no. So they do not want the lake to be renamed. Ancestors, are you at peace? Are you at peace, ancestors? And that is a no, that they are not at peace. Have you ever, so they are not at peace, okay? Are you not at peace because of what happened at Oscarville? And that is yes. Are there more people that, or did more people lose their lives that were accounted for? Yes. So is the number 700 higher than 700? Yes. So it's currently at 703, maybe, but I always believed that there was more people unaccounted for that lost their life as a result of the incident that happened at Oscarville. Did these? Are you angry? Are you angry, enraged, um, that these people took your land? Yes. Are you still angry and hurt and enraged that they took your land? Is Lake Lanier cursed? Lake Lanier is cursed. It's not. Okay, is Lake Lanier haunted? Lake Lanier is haunted. Okay, so Lake Lanier is cursed and it is haunted. Okay, so let's see. What else do they want us to know? Okay. Um, is there a lady in blue? Because they say there's some lady in blue that haunts the lake. Is that true? That's not true. So the lady in blue that they try to associate with this lake isn't true. She's not haunting this lake. Hmm. Are you haunting? Is ancestors? Are you haunting the land as well as the lake? Yes. So part of the land of Lake Lanier is haunted as well as the lake. Yes or no? Yes. So part of the land, and so I guess, is that the land that's underwater? Is that okay? Is the land that's not underwater haunted? Yes. Oh, is it cursed too? Yes. Okay, so the land and everything else is cursed as well too. Okay. Is Are you able to rest and find peace? No. Are you Do you feel like you are not able to find rest and peace because people are constantly on you in the water, boating, playing, picnicking on the land? So that's a yes as well. So they feel like, look, they can't find rest and peace because they are like there's constantly activity by that lake and people going on there. That's a burial. It's basically cemeteries. Like some of the bodies were not removed. Some of the bodies were not removed. There's some answers that are buried there still. There's some ancestors that are buried in that and buried in there, in that water. Okay. Then you have the fact that it was a genocide. It was basically a lynching, murdering. They got that land by evil means, and the government benefited. So all of that is, basically stirring up the most negative energies that you can possibly stir up. Is there a portal in Lake Lanier that is causing some of these drownings and incidents to happen? So there's actually a portal in that Lake Lanier somewhere. So they have to be very careful when you go into that water. Look, just recently, October 20th, there was a person that was on a jet ski in that water and he drowned. He was on a jet ski. The jet ski somehow it malfunctioned. He got off of the jet ski thinking he could just swim to shore, and he was unable to swim to shore. And they found his body a couple days later. Okay, so do some of you want to move on and leave the lake and move on from the lake? Yes. Do y'all feel, ancestors, I want to know, do some of you feel like you're trapped on that lake without release? Okay, some of y'all feel like y'all trapped without release on that lake. Okay, so some of them feel like they're trapped on that lake with no release. Okay, let's see. Do you want to move on and find peace and go with the one that I shall not name and move on from Lake Lanier? Do you want to go with the one that I shall not name and move on from Lake Lanier, no longer trapped to that lake? That's a yes. So I got a yes. Okay, so they want to be, some of them do not want to be trapped to this lake anymore and would like to move on. Okay. Are some of you so angry about what happened that you are drowning, harming, and even sometimes taking the lives of people who dare to swim on this lake? And that's a yes. So they are doing these things. Some of them are some of the incidents that have happened at that lake, are they accidents? No. So none of these are accidents. So everybody who has perished on this lake was purposely done. This was purposely done. Whew. It's like I almost feel like, wow, I feel waterlogged. Like I feel like there's water in, like, oh my gosh. I can't even describe the feeling, but it's like, ooh. Okay. Those who want to be released from Lake Lanier and no longer tied to the lake, you are no longer bound or tied to the lake. You are no longer bound or tied to the lake. You are no longer bound or tied to the lake. If you want to, you may move on and go with him and move on from this lake. You are free and no longer tied to this lake. You can move on and find peace. You can be reincarnated if you want to, or you may go into the spirit land and move on and find peace in spirit. You're no longer bound. Will you move on? Yes, they will move on. So they'll move on. Will everybody move on? No. Are those that are angry still, are those that are angry, will you stay with this lake? So those that are angry are going to stay with that lake, and they are not playing no games. They are going to continue to take lives. Okay, so if people choose, this is my warning to y'all, and this is the warning from them. I'm going to ask them, is this the warning that you want me to convey? Yeah, so this is the warning they want to convey. That if you choose to come on this lake and you swim in that water and you play in that water, or you play on that land, that you are playing with cursed water, cursed land that they don't want you in. Because when you get into it, you're disturbing their peace. That is their water and land. That is theirs. That is their burial. That is their land. And they lost that land by foul means. Nobody was compensated properly. Nobody was made whole. And because of that, that land and water is cursed. Okay? Let's see. I wanted to pull some cards. Whew. So the card of family came up. Okay. forming structures. So that's the structures. Ooh. Okay, that's amazing. Of all things that come up, it's the background of water and the structures. Separation. So some of them are separating themselves from that land. Oh, thank you, Lord Jesus. Some is doing it. Some are detaching. Okay. Ooh, it's just so just like a heavy feeling and a light feeling all at once. It's coming over me. It's like a light and heavy feeling. It's like, ooh. I know you keep hearing me go, ooh, because it's like, ooh. It's like, I don't know. It's like almost, I can't even describe it. Like, ooh. I feel like there's water in my nose. You know how you like get in the water and you just feel, it's like an undescribable feeling. Okay, good. Transition card comes up, okay? The card of transition comes up. Okay, so that means they're transitioning, moving on. Okay, good, 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 good. Ooh. I'm glad to hear and see them moving on. Calmer waters, healing, progress, moving on, moving forward. This is good. Overcoming the hardship, journey. And like of all cards, you see the person in the boat with somebody else next to them and moving away, like they're moving away from a situation. So this shows that they have a transition, that those who chose to move on are moving on. Oh, this is glad to see people moving on. That thank you. I'm very happy to see that. Oh, I think I need to end this live so I can oh, yeah. I think I'm just gonna end this live. Oh, yeah, I need to. It's like the energy of the ones that don't want to move on. I tell you, child, that's something. But I am glad that I even got a pain in my ear. I am glad that I did this on Lake Lanier and Answers to Speak psychic reading. I'm glad that I did this. I'm glad that some of them chose to move on. And I'm going to ask one last final question. I know, I know you're like, Raven, Carl, don't tell it. But I am. I'm going to ask one final question. Have they moved on? Have they chosen to? Have some of the people from Lake Lanier chose to move on? Yes. Is one of the people Tamika's foster Usher's ex-wife's son, KG? Have you chosen to move on? Yes. Is there any message that you would like your mother to know? Yes. Okay, so the message started with a letter. Let's see. Okay, so I have found peace. So I have found peace. Okay, that's good to know that you have found peace. And on that note, I am closing it out. Goodbye. Goodbye. And on that note, that is the end. Y'all comment below and tell me what y'all think. I will be creating, I think I might be doing like a little Facebook page or something like that. That, we could talk and you could add like some questions and stuff that you would like to have answered in a video. And, of course, I'll be using the community tab to help as well on next topics and stuff like that. Don't forget to click subscribe and comment below and, give me your opinion on this video and tell me what you think. It's your girl, Goddess Raven Botanica, and Ashe, goodbye.